So Swerve Strickland with his, I would say manager, even friend, but now I'm not sure the way they presented him here, Prince Nana, against Leo Rush.
Can I say something?
Please do.
This was a star-making performance for Leo Rush.
Yes.
I watched this and I'm like, Leo Rush is amazing. This Swerve guy sucks. Leo Rush rules. What a performance.
This match was the best match on the show, which makes it the worst match on the show because it killed off Swerve Strickland. They're wiping their feet on him and Nana. And wasn't Leo Rush a babyface 2 weeks ago? We saw him do something sometime.
I want to say, yeah, I don't remember what he did, but I think he was a babyface. I think you're right.
Did he wrestle Shelton?
That's right. That's what it was.
Yes, and we said, well, this was an exemplary match because Shelton gave him a few openings because he's a quick little thing. He's not quick, he's sudden, as Gordon Soley would say. And then he manhandled him because he's twice his size and he beat him convincingly. And it was a great piece of business.
That's right. Now Leo got his heat back against Swerve Strickland.
Well, I was about to say, so 2 weeks ago, Leo was a babyface. And now he comes out and he's a fucking heel against Swerve, who is going to be wrestling Bobby Lashley on pay-per-view coming up in 10 days. And he's going to have a warm-up match on TV against a guy that would need a step stool to clear a speed bump. And Leo Rush kicked the shit out of Swerve Strickland for a long, long time. They had fake promos on this show, fake matches, fake walls, fake booking. Swerve couldn't handle Leo. Leo, like you said, looked like the one they were pushing.
And, the fans got into it.
Yes. But we'll never see Leo again, or if we do, somebody will beat him next week. But when Lashley gets a hold of a guy who can't beat a sixth grader, I fear for Swerve's safety. And again, the fans were into it because it was so preposterous, they started wanting Leo to fucking win. And finally, Swerve gave him some kind of fucked up move, 1, 2, 3. And that was everything that he had in him to beat Leo Rush. Is there nobody there to produce this guy? I would have fired Swerve Strickland for letting Leo Rush do that match. But again, what the fuck will Lashley do to this poor fellow? And then Swerve gets on the microphone and cuts a promo and called the town of Bridgeport, Connecticut, Stamford, Connecticut. Right here in Stamford, Connecticut.
And they let him hear it.
The people booed the shit out of him. And then he called out Bobby Lashley, and here comes MVP and Bobby Lashley out in suits, and Lashley is a giant. He's Andre next to this roster. And MVP is trying to ask him if he wants a fight, just ask me. And he's starting to cut a promo, but the fans are still chanting, "This is Bridgeport." And they're not listening to MVP. But did Swerve, was he trying to do some kind of inside shoot interview? Or did he really believe they were in Stamford, which is 20 or 30 miles and a completely different city?
Yeah, is it one of those things where he thinks like Stamford's the big city and like they just associate with the bigger city that's nearby?
I would think he'd be able to tell when there ain't no goddamn giant sports arena in Stamford like the one he's in Bridgeport.
Well, they made up for it. For the rest of the night, they made sure to say Bridgeport over and over and over again.
Oh, my God. So anyway, the fans aren't listening to MVP because they're catcalling the babyface for not knowing the name of their fucking town. And, I mean, it's a comedy of errors on this show. And then Bobby takes his jacket off, and MVP says, well, Bobby's ready to fight, but Swerve, you ought to learn there's strength in numbers. And Shelton's in the ring from behind, and he levels Swerve. And then again, Nana. had to stand in the corner and do nothing. He's just stood in the turnbuckles, backed up, scared. He's a baby face now. And
2 weeks ago, or however long ago, he did a promo where he said, "I used to be a wrestler."
yes, well, that don't look fucking particularly accurate either at this point. Because Bobby then is beating up Swerve on the floor, but Shelton has just backed Nana in the corner, and Nana's doing that kind of "don't hurt me" type of thing, and Shelton's just standing there. If you're going to be a babyface manager, yes, the idea is the heel manager is a coward and a chicken shit and can't whip anybody and is physically ineffectual unless he's got a weapon or a club or he's behind the guy or whatever. But when you become a babyface, you have to change slightly the psychology in that maybe the heel should say if you punch them or you kick them or they should sell you a little bit more than they would have if you were a heel. But you're still not a badass or an ass kicker, but you have to try. Your guys are your friends. And you have, as a grown adult man, you have to try to do something and fail, but at least you tried to stop the abuse of your guy. And when they're walking through this or they're talking over it or they're in some kind of finish meeting or however they're doing things over there, I can't understand why Nana doesn't bring it up, and I can't understand why the producers, if they exist, don't bring it up. Let him try to do something, be wiped out, take a bump, and sell it. But then you have made the people feel somewhat sorry for Nana because at least he tried. Now, it looks like Nana is a coward and doesn't give a shit about Swerve enough to even take a swing at a guy that's kicking the shit out of him. And then, at one point, they got Bobby back in the ring. Nana started to just get out and leave his guy there. And MVP grabbed him and pulled him back in and choked him with the cane because MVP realizes what it's like to be a manager. And he's trying to help, keep him occupied, give him something. And their MVP is an exception to the rule in that a former wrestler who becomes a manager doesn't have to be completely physically ineffectual, because they've seen that he can take care of himself and he can do shit. But even that, when that former wrestler is a heel, he is still not able to one-on-one kick the shit out of the babyface wrestler, but he can certainly use a gimmick on a babyface manager. There's a pecking order here that makes sense so you don't bury anybody. Or the fans say, well, fuck Nana. He won't even try to help. So then Sheldon and Bobby beat up Swerve, and Bobby hurt-locked him and put him out. And while the heel is putting the babyface out with the goddamn hurt-lock, the fans are chanting, Bridgeport, Bridgeport. And finally, Lashley did grab Nana, and they scheduled him apparently to take a bump, and he ran him through the turnbuckles to the floor, and it was kind of an odd bump. He got hung a little bit on one foot, but it looked awkward, but in a painful way. But in the meantime, they scheduled that the manager bump in this instance doesn't come last. You do that, and then you put the main event former ex-world champion babyface out with the fuck of your finish hold, and that's the point you leave with. It just, everything's backwards and upside down, and they're cheering the heels and booing the baby faces and chanting the name of their town while the baby face is getting, prison sodomized.
And that was almost YouTube appropriate, so I commend you for that, sir.
Well, thank you.
Leo Rush is a star. I always say he's one of my favorite guys. He shows up and then he disappears. Like those classic guys when you were a tape trader. Like, oh, any footage I can get of this guy. He's never around too long. That's him. And he can do promos and he can get heat. And he can work an entertaining match that makes sense for a little guy. And Swerve looks like shit again.
Yeah.
Nana is like a non-entity. He's like Paul Ellering is a manager. He's a non-entity. No, Ellering took a bump. I shouldn't say that.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
Yeah. I mean, the fans still think Bobby Lashley's a star. You just got to get more fans into these buildings. And, you know, if you get people in, if you're giving out free tickets to people to sell them on your product, and then this is overall show-wide, taping-wide, what you give them, don't be surprised by the reaction you're getting.
You know, normally these days, with the world the way it is, people come into an arena, they go through a metal detector. Do you think they ought to have somebody checking the AEW crowd for rotten vegetables?
We're getting to that point. Another 20-minute Osprey Fletcher Shakespearean scene. I lived with you. You know where my child goes to school. What? What's he going to do to your kid?
You know that...
Or the school?
Except for the fact that Osprey mentioned his wife, that the same verbiage could have been used through that whole promo for a romantic relationship gone wrong.
Well...
But anyway, yes.
That was Dynamite, I was going to say.
No, it wasn't. We're not done yet.
Oh, really?